When the government refuses to give any type of statement about an alleged UFO sighting, it just makes you wonder about the mysteries surrounding it, especially when the incident was witnessed by hundreds of people in what can be described as Australia's most compelling UFO mystery. The year was 1966, the Wednesday before Easter. Westall is a small, quiet suburb in Australia, and for the students and staff of Westall High School, it was just another ordinary day. They were busy with the weekday rush, looking forward to finishing things before the school holidays. As the morning recess came to an end, the kids were roaming about the school's sports field. At around 11 AM, a loud commotion drew students and teachers outside the sports field. Miss Jeanette Muir, one of the teachers, was probably the first adult to see the object after hearing the children's shouts and shrieks. Sue Savage, who was a 13-year-old student at the time, was in science class at Westall High School when a fellow student ran into the classroom shouting, "There is a flying saucer outside." Around 200 witnesses claimed to have seen something in the sky, although they gave varying accounts of what they saw. There was a shiny silver-grey disc slowly moving over the school in a southerly direction. The children around the oval were panicking with fear, running, crying and yelling. For many, the sight of this odd aircraft was overwhelming. Although it suddenly appeared, it appeared to be flying and hovering purposefully, as if it were in control, as if it were a vehicle with something inside. Sue clearly remembers the object as being two saucers, one on the bottom and one turned upside down on the top.
Some people say there was just one, but I reckon there were three. They were hovering over the trees and then went down into the trees and disappeared for a minute or two, then rose back up, sort of banked on its side and then took off at 1,000 miles per hour.
The objects were described as being around the size of 2 or 3 cars and silver in colour with a purple tint. It hovered in the vicinity of the high school and then over the primary school for a few minutes before abruptly taking off 400 metres away from the school, in the property known as the Grange. The Grange Reserve was an open area of deserted, overgrown property next to the primary school. After crossing the reserve, the object began to lose height and was seen dropping behind a group of trees. Many eager students set out to follow the craft, some by jumping the school fence. The aircraft then briefly stopped, possibly for no longer than a few seconds, before ascending from the treetops once more and leaving the region in a northwestern direction. It quickly disappeared from view and was never seen again. Some claimed that when the objects took off, up to 5 light aircraft were pursuing it. Kevin Hurley, who was 21 at the time, heard about the UFO encounter and went to ride his bike from Murrumbina to the school. He never saw a UFO, but he did make his way through dense grass to the location beyond the trees where the students claimed the UFO made a short landing.
I saw a whole lot of people in a group huddle. They were all looking at the ground, and there in 2-foot high grass was a big perfect circle of absolutely flattened and twisted grass. In that circle there were 3 distinct impressions where the grass had been penetrated down to the dirt.
Together with another male teacher, Miss Muir made an effort to gather the students and guide them back to the shelter of the school. In the immediate aftermath, Headmaster Frank Samblebe summoned an assembly back at the high school. He instructed the students to stop reacting out of shock and urged them not to talk about the incident. He even said that flying saucers do not exist and that they had not seen anything important. During this assembly, students saw several people they had never seen before. Men in black wearing suits stood behind the headmaster while he was talking. Over the course of the next few hours, a number of students would have close interactions with the men in dark suits in Mr. Samblebe's office, and for them, there was no question that they were there to keep things under wraps.
Well, he took me to a room which I presume was a parent-teacher interview little office, and there were 2 gentlemen waiting there, and I was with them probably for about 15 minutes, being questioned.
Did they say who they were?
No.
What
No,
nationality were they?
Definitely American.
Americans?
Yeah, they didn't want me to speak of the incident to absolutely anybody, and because it was in the interest of national security, so we want you to keep this under your belt and not discuss it with anybody.
However, numerous individuals, including children from the primary and high schools, as well as their family and neighbours, travelled to the Grange during the course of the following hours that day, particularly after school, to confirm the rumours of the mysterious incident. Some people believed the students' and teachers' stories, others didn't. Albie, a firefighter from the nearby Springvale fire station, who was dispatched that day in response to a report of something odd crashing amongst the trees at the Grange, still firmly believes that the students saw something extraordinary. He can still clearly remember the path their fire truck travelled as it crossed busy Westall Road and manoeuvred through the Grange's bush paths, gum trees and pine trees. The fire crew drove about in search of the crash site because they lacked precise coordinates. When they arrived, they discovered a mob of school children rushing about in search of the craft. On that day, a different emergency service branch had also been informed. The State Emergency Service also received a report of something in chaos, a crash at the Grange.
That 2 separate fire brigades were called. We know the Civil Defence Organisation was called. We know the police attended both to the school and to the site at the Grange.
A crew was dispatched from the Oakley depot, but they again arrived too late to view any craft, but in time to witness the commotion at the Grange and the surrounding area. Having numerous unresolved questions, both emergency crews went back to their respective stations. When they arrived at the Grange in Westall, the volunteer firefighters and SES teams might not have known exactly where they were heading or what they were looking for, but it appears that the military and police that came to the scene did. 24 witnesses, including a teacher, have similar memories of individuals wearing police or military uniforms arriving at the circle area at the Grange and the school. Others are unsure. Some say the army and others claim the Air Force. Another witness recalled seeing roughly 20 soldiers in uniform take control of a circle-shaped paddock after disembarking from 2 military vehicles and 2 long bed trucks covered in camouflage tarpaulins.
Within 40 minutes of the sighting, Air Force and Army personnel, look in their trucks. They were there.
Another, an apprentice, who had 2 younger brothers enrolled at the school, recalled hiding behind a row of pine trees with his high school sister as they witnessed 4 soldiers. 2 enlisted men and 2 others in officer attire examined the circle with specialised equipment.
They saw them there with lorries, with Land Rovers. They saw people getting equipment out of their vehicles, equipment like metal detectors, Geiger counters, shovels and spades. And they were apparently busily inspecting the site of these ground marks. We know.
The district newspaper, the Dandenong Journal, was also called to the site by witnesses. Interviews with a teacher and a student were conducted by the Dandenong Journal. The headmaster gave both the teacher and the student harsh reprimands for doing this. By the afternoon, a Channel 9 TV crew also arrived at the front gate, hoping to speak with ecstatic witnesses, before a police officer and a teacher interfered and told the students to go back inside. A few students were able to describe what happened. That evening, the story was featured on Melbourne TV News along with the footage of the cut short interviews. Oddly, despite the fact that the newspaper's hired photographer is certain he captured pictures of the circle at the time, they weren't included in the story. Another strange thing was that Channel 9 was unable to find the original news story that all of the witnesses remembered seeing after searching both at Sydney and Melbourne film archives. The day after that, the Age newspaper released a report saying that what everyone saw might have been a weather balloon. This was established because on the day the UFO was seen, the Weather Bureau released a balloon in Laverton around 8:30 AM. And the weather balloon could have moved into the area of the sighting. However, the descriptions of the witnesses didn't match any of the details about the weather balloon. Witnesses believe there's been a cover-up, especially because the day after the incident, people claimed that the military was ordering people not to go near the area of the incident. The reluctance of the school's administration prevented thorough investigations. Investigators were calling for eyewitnesses, but interviews with the witnesses were not permitted. 2 days later, on Good Friday, investigators from the Victorian Flying Saucer Research Society showed up. However, by this time, the students left for the Easter holidays and the school was closed for the break. They were able to speak with several residents and get images of the circle in the grass. But according to the society, neither the images nor any possible inquiry notes can be found anymore. As the years went by, new details were added to the description of the occurrence with each succeeding report or narrative. Marilyn Smith, who was among the students and saw the incident, released a UFO sketch of what she saw. Marilyn considers it an honor to have witnessed the incident. It supported her conviction that life exists out there. And in this image, a story that was written by a boy from Westall High who witnessed the sighting can be seen.
I was in class when a disturbance occurred outside. I didn't take any notice, and when the bell went for morning recess, my classmates and I went to our lockers and then walked out into the yard. We noticed that all the girls who were doing physical education were gathered right down near the end of our playing field. Suddenly, the school came alive with excitement, and everybody began running down towards where the girls were. I was among the surging mob. I had seen something that looked very unusual in the sky. As I looked up, I saw a dazzling silvery object flying around some pine trees which grew on a ridge about a quarter of a mile directly behind the school. It then flew across some open paddocks also behind the school and returned to the pines. On the other side of the ridge there is a small field. The thing hovered over the pines and descended behind them and must have been directly over the field. I then lost sight of it because of the pines. As the thing was out of sight, I began to notice many private aircraft, mainly Cessna, flying towards the pines. It was then the thing reappeared and rose to the level of the approaching aircraft. This enabled me to get a rough idea of its size. It was a silvery object, as long as one of the Cessna, but very thin. As the aircraft approached, the thing tilted on about a 45-degree angle and started to move into the distance, gradually gaining height. The planes increased their speed and began to follow it, but the object streaked away, leaving the planes far, far behind. The planes turned back, but we all stood hoping it would return, but it didn't. So we all went into school 15 minutes late. After school, 2 friends and I went to the field where the object had descended. In a few minutes, we were crawling under a barbed wire fence which surrounded the field at a height of about 4 4 feet. We waded through the waist-high grass, making for a gap in it. Suddenly we were there. We found ourselves standing in a spot where the grass had been utterly crushed against the earth. It was an area of about 25 to 30 feet in diameter. Cows could not have done it because the fence was barbed, and also cows would have left a track through the grass. There was no track. The object had descended over the field. Could it have done this? It all leads back to the same question. What was the object? Some people say it was a weather balloon, but do weather balloons go up and down quickly, crush grass, and fly across the skies faster than reasonably speedy aircraft? Otherwise, your guess is as good as mine.
One particularly intriguing account came from a student known as V. In 2008, Australian author and UFO researcher Bill Chalker interviewed V. The incident was roughly drawn by V for Bill. During the arrival of the 2 silver saucers on the school grounds, young V and 3 other students managed to come in close proximity to them. It was an extraordinary experience, but not a new one for V because a few years earlier, when he was younger, he had already seen the exact same object. During an early morning escapade in a factory site in Westall Grange, trying to take a wooden pallet, he saw the same looking object he'd seen on the school grounds. In a few scattered pieces on the internet, there were reports that the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, or CSIRO, had removed soil from a location in Westall in connection with the UFO incident. Dr. Burson, a scientist who was working with the CSIRO, suggested in a letter to Robert Lowe, the coordinator of the notorious US Colorado University Condon UFO Study Project, that the military may have had foreknowledge about the 1966 Westall incident.
On another occasion, I established the fact that a similar Department of Air team has appeared so quickly on the scene of a sighting made by a group of schoolchildren and a teacher in the vicinity of an aerodrome as to make one believe they had some foreknowledge. The teaching staff was asked by the DA men to play it down, and the sighting was promptly ridiculed. Yet quite independently, another group of people had reported the unusual phenomenon from the opposite peripheral area of the aerodrome.
The DA during that time was an Australian federal government department created to assist the Royal Australian Air Force. Interestingly, 4 days before the Westall incident, a coloured Polaroid photo of an alleged UFO was taken in the Balwyn suburb. The photographer was a local businessman who worked for an engineering firm and was a Victorian Flying Saucer Research Society member. It was a warm sunny day when the man's house garden suddenly became illuminated, as though there had been a reflection in a very large mirror. When the man looked up, he noticed a shiny sparkling thing approaching him. Its diameter, according to him, was 20 to 35 feet. The item appeared to be hovering 150 feet above the ground. It looked to float toward the spectator as it descended. The unusual object had a stem that pointed down towards the earth like a large mushroom. It rotated through a 180-degree angle on its vertical axis before being captured on camera by the witness. In a report on the image, VFSRS stated that neither the original Polaroid nor an enlarged copy of it revealed any signs of multiple exposures, montage, or other types of tampering, proving that the image was indeed authentic. But after having their photo consultant look at the image, the US organization Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, or APRO, suggested it might be a fraud. The Westall event, however, brought the picture to the public's attention. The interest was because the photograph appeared to depict an item that was pretty much identical to the thing observed by Westall. In 2005, academic Shane Ryan reopened the case and started investigating the incident.
Back to the 6th of April, 1966, at the Westall High School. What happened?
So on that day, something very unusual, something that the kids had never seen before, flew into their view. It flew silently, it flew unexpectedly, and according to the witnesses who were there, it looked like a bowl, turned upside down, sitting on something like a plate or a saucer. It was silver looking, metallic looking, and it flew in ways that they'd never seen an object fly before. These kids were very used to aircraft. Moorabbin Airport was only a few kilometres away, a very busy airport. But this object, apart from being silent or virtually silent, it flew very quickly, it would stop, in midair it would hover, and then it would flick off and then flick on again on the other side of the sky.
Shane, an English lecturer, is interviewing a large number of witnesses for a book he planned to release on the sighting's 40th anniversary. He became familiar with the incident because of a housemate that was present during the event. With a lot of witnesses that have different descriptions of the event, they managed to agree on a few things. First, it was a low-flying silvery or greyish bright object that resembled or was quite similar to a flying saucer. Second, it landed at the Grange Reserve behind some pine trees. Dozens of students ran across what was then an open paddock to the reserve to investigate, but the the object had lifted off and vanished. In 2019, Ryan had managed to interview more than 100 witnesses. He made extensive use of social media and was also asking through Facebook comments for any helpful information regarding the incident. Although some stories are sketchier than others, they agree on one thing: it was a UFO that was seen that day. For the 40th anniversary of the Westall UFO sighting, Shane posted an ad for a sort of witness reunion. Along with others, Sue Savage was present for the occasion. It was a big deal for the witnesses. No one believed them, and they were afraid of being ridiculed. But there they are now, meeting with people who were certain about seeing the same thing that day. Ross Coulthart, author and investigative journalist who released the shocking book In Plain Sight, has been investigating and reporting on UFO sightings for the past few years now and shedding light on the subject. In 2022, a special documentary with investigative journalist and author Ross Coulthart was released. It featured the witness's account of the Westall incident. Ross had been studying and investigating UFO incidents and is trying to shed more information about the Westall UFO sighting. Some of the witnesses decided to be quiet about the incident for a very long time, and the decision may have had a valid justification. One of the teachers working at Westall High School at the time of the UFO sighting, Andrew Greenwood, has spoken of strange interactions with Australian government representatives who insisted he stays quiet about what he witnessed.
It was your classic cigar-shaped object that looked like grey metal. That's what it looked like.
Greenwood was among the teachers of Westall High School who saw the UFO sighting firsthand. A student of his shouted,
Mr. Greenwood, there's a flying saucer!
After the event, Greenwood shared the incident with local news reporters. However, 2 weeks after it, two men who went to his door and identified themselves as government agents made him hesitant to speak out further. He was threatened by them.
When I tried to explain to them that they weren't there, I was, and I knew what I saw. And, well, I think the first suggestion was that you'd be ill-advised to go on saying that because clearly you were drunk on duty and that will have to be reported to the education department and of course you'll lose your job.
Terry Peck, a student, was also one of the witnesses who remembers being advised not to talk about the experience. When she witnessed what she described as a flying saucer craft, she was just 11 years old.
I actually headed over to the corner of the school and jumped the fence and went into a place called the Grange, which is an area where we used to do our cross-country exercises, and ran towards where we had seen one appear to come down and land.
Terry could feel the heat of the hovering object because she was so close to it.
You actually saw one of the objects land?
Yes. Well, I didn't see it land, but I did see it on the ground in front of me. I could feel a heat and hear this buzzing sound, and I could see purple lights all around it. I no sooner got there, and within, I'd say, a minute, it just raised up off the ground really slowly, just kept on rising to probably about 3 or 4 metres, maybe a bit higher, and then it turned on its side and just almost just disappeared, just went straight up like that. And I looked up in the sky and I could see the other two. So it appeared to just disappear.
She revealed that after that, a school assembly was held where staff and students were asked by the headmaster not to talk about the incident. In addition to that mystery statement, and despite a large number of witnesses, no government body has offered an official explanation for what was seen during that time. So many mysteries and no concrete answers, and the legacy of the event is still apparent up to this day. In 2011, Shane Ryan and film director Rosie Jones made the documentary Westall 66, a suburban UFO mystery. It was released as an educational documentary that can be used in the humanities and social sciences, English, psychology, politics, and media studies. It took 3 years in the making with the narratives of the witnesses explored. Additionally, the local government body managed to capitalise on the incident. In 2013, a $150,000 UFO-themed playground in Grange Reserve was built by the Kingston Council. It's located close to the area where witnesses claim the first UFO landed. The descriptions of witnesses in 1966 served as a loose inspiration for the Silver spaceship. With the support of a climbing frame and rope structure, children can enter the spaceship and one of the two tubular sides enables them to exit. Somewhat, the UFO playground gives the 1966 sighting official validation for the witnesses. What do you think? Thank you for hanging out with me and watching today. My name is James and this is the restricted section. If you enjoy stories like this one, please consider liking the video, subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks again and see you on the next one.